Let's look at power prices now and reliability, because for the first time in a long time, we're starting to get some truth-telling from people inside the energy industry, and boy, that's been a long time coming. Now, I've hosted this program for almost 6 years. There's not a week that's gone by when I haven't tried to explain what I know from the inside of government about the energy train wreck ahead for this country if we don't rethink the pace of our transition to renewables. Now, I'm not going to argue with you about whether you do or don't sign up to the Climate Manifesto. Put that to one side. My issue has always been about the cost and practical reality in science and engineering terms of the pace of our move to dump coal and gas for renewables. And it's the pace of that change that's hiking power prices to astronomical levels. It's risking blackouts. It's sending big industry and manufacturing offshore because they can't afford to do what they used to do here because they can't make a profit when power bills keep increasing as they have. The real tragedy is that these employers are offshoring good, well-paid jobs into countries that aren't as emissions obsessive as Australia, and they're enjoying the cheap power in those countries made possible by exports of our coal and our gas, the very same coal and gas we demonise here and are shutting down. Today's headlines were sobering. A warning from business leaders it read, "Power bill misery has years to run," says the Australian front page. "Power grid precarious as winter looms," warns Energy Australia. And then there was this extraordinary interview on Melbourne Morning Radio from Matthew Warren, a key energy insider, the former chief executive of the Australian Energy Council, the former chief executive of the Energy Supply Association, and a member too of the federal government's Clean Energy Council. When asked bluntly by Neil Mitchell if we've been conned with promises that more renewables will mean cheaper power for us, well, Warren said this.
I think the promises that governments have made are difficult, if not impossible, to deliver, and we're realising that, and that's probably been the case for a number of years. So the problem is that we are not replacing like-for-like capacity with the coal generators that are exiting, and as they keep closing, the margins we're working with get tighter and tighter.
When asked about higher prices longer term, meaning how long we're going to have to cop these skyrocketing bills before things start to get better, well, Warren said that gas is the key. The very fossil fuel, I might add, that the Greens and Labor want banned as much as they want coal banned, the very fossil fuel too that some states like Victoria prohibit being developed.
And gas is the key player. So when prices started to fall back in 2018, that was because gas prices were falling. When we had the war in Ukraine and gas prices globally went through the roof, electricity prices went through the roof. So it's one follows the other. For the next decade, gas will continue to set the electricity prices.
This is why gas matters. This is why laws to ban gas exploration and extraction matter, said Warren.
Electricity prices are probably likely to stay high for as long as we're reliant on gas prices.
How long before we have a hope of getting renewables to take the major load?
The problem with renewables is that what renewables were built to date. About a third of our electricity comes from renewables now, which is a pretty impressive sort of development over the last decade or so. But we've built that inside the existing grid, Neil. So that's kind of we've used up all the capacity of the existing infrastructure. We now have to build sort of gigantic extension leads, if you like, into sort of remoter parts of Australia and firming up the grid to be able to add more renewables. And so that's just physically constrained.
This is my kind of truth-telling, and this is where it really starts to get interesting. Listen to this.
The plan for renewables talks about 10,000 kilometres of new transmission lines, and we build at a rate of 500 or 600 kilometres a year. So you can do the maths. It's going to be a while before we've got enough capacity to bring that new generation online.
So we need, what'd you say, 10,000 kilometres, and we're building at 500 to 600 a year?
Yep.
10,000 kilometres, he says, of transmission. Matthew Warren, energy expert. But at best, we're only able to build out around 500 to 600 kilometres of these transmission lines every year. Now, asked why does the government just do it faster? Why don't they step up so we can get cheaper power into the system? Well, Warren said this.
It's not that. It's not the building transmission is the world is building lots of transmission. It's not just us, and accessing the materials and the resources and the expertise. It's not something you can just go and get more people and double your output.
But as much as power prices are hurting us, it's reliability that's the real crisis. Indeed, the term used by the head of Energy Australia today is that Australia's electricity supply is precarious. When put that to Warren, this was his response.
Yes, we've been reliant on, we've used coal for a long time, and the coal generators we just had Liddell close in New South Wales. So we're relying on an ageing fleet of coal generators to fill the gap to reach this new sort of technology transformation that's going to take longer than people anticipate.
Made all the worse, of course, because in winter, solar is nowhere near the replacement for coal or gas. And if it's cold and dark and still, meaning we don't have the option of wind, then by God, we're in trouble.
Winter is going to be the problem. Yep, we traditionally had the biggest peaks in summer with air conditioning load, but because of the penetration of rooftop solar, that's really ameliorated summer peak crisis, if you like. But the big challenge is winter because it's dark and it's cold, and when it's dark, cold and still, then we're relying on the thermal generation fleet to keep us through.
Look, as I said earlier, for too long in this country, electricity cost and supply has been a pawn for the Green left, and too many ignorant voters have drunk the Kool-Aid on climate change that says we can somehow save the world with no more than 1% of global emissions in Australia, shut down our world-class electricity grid, and that somehow we can make it all add up. Now, it doesn't add up. Worse still, the crowd that loves to lecture us all on science, respect the science, well, they show a dim understanding of engineering reality.
The leaders of the industry have been saying this stuff sort of regularly now for the last few years, and there's real disquiet inside the industry about winters. So yeah, it's getting really tight.
I've been debating energy policy for almost 2 decades now, 16 years in Canberra and the rest here each night with you. I used to hope voters might eventually see sense, but that time's passed. It's only now as bills skyrocket and supply becomes genuinely uncertain that I hope we wake up before it's too late. I hope this turns the tide with voters. As a country, we've been blessed with what's in the ground, but it's what's between the ears of our leaders that's now deaf and blind to those blessings and thus killing confidence and risking our prosperity.